Good evening, everybody. So tonight I am going to dig in again to a book that I've kind of dug into before, An Altar in the World. I realize you can't see that very well. An Altar in the World by Barbara Brown Taylor. And I've kind of talked about this one before. She has a really great way of putting spiritual practice into practical everyday things, and it kind of reframing how we think about spiritual practice. It's not something that is only separate from our daily activities, but is part of it. It's part of our life and how we walk through our life. So she has some really practical chapter titles, like the practice of paying attention, the practice of wearing skin, the practice of encountering others. And today we're going to look at the practice of feeling pain. This is something that not a single human is unfamiliar with. So it's probably one of the more practical ones in this book. So I'm just going to read a small excerpt from this to get us started. I had been teaching world religions for several years before I realized how many of them grew out of suffering. Buddhism began when the overprivileged Prince Siddhartha, protected from suffering since his birth, left the palace grounds one day and saw a sick man, an old man, and a dead man for the first time in his life. These three passing sights so affected him that he dedicated the rest of his life to easing the suffering of all who faced the pain inherent of being alive. Judaism's central story is the story of the Exodus, in which God heard the cries of an immigrant people suffering forced labor, fatal beatings, and the murder of their newborns in the land of Egypt, recruiting a royal fugitive named Moses to free them. God led them by pillars of fire and cloud through more suffering in the wilderness until they emerged a new people with a new future in a new land. Christianity began when Jesus emerged from his own wilderness experience to minister to the suffering of an occupied people, occupied not only by Rome, but also by the fear that their long oppression meant God had abandoned them. He addressed this fear by healing the sick, feeding the hungry, and freeing those who were possessed by demons, even though his care for other people's pain put him in grave risk of bringing pain upon himself. His death on a Roman cross became both the epitome of human suffering and the proof that even suffering such as that could not force one chosen by God to leave the path of love. Islam began in a cave outside the desert city of Mecca, where the Prophet Muhammad prayed to God for some solution to the tribal warfare that was tearing his people apart. When the angel Gabriel appeared on that night of power, commanding him to recite the first verses of the Quran, the prophet had the beginning of God's answer. Years later, forced from the city of his birth under relentless persecution and threat of death, he led a small band of followers north to Yathrib, where these first Muslims found peace and welcome at last. I could go on, but you get the idea. Pain is provocative. Pain pushes people to the edge, causing them to ask fundamental questions, such as, why is this happening, and how can this be fixed? Pain brings out the best in people along with the worst. Pain strips away all the illusions required to maintain the status quo. Pain begs for change, and when those in its grip find no release on earth, plenty of them look to heaven, including some whose formal belief systems preclude such wishful thinking. Since feeling pain is not optional for human beings, I have some explaining to do. How can something as non-negotiable as feeling pain serve as a spiritual practice? Like all the other aspects of the human condition described in this book, from having a body and being with other people to doing work and needing rest, feeling pain is something else that can be handled in a variety of ways. I can try to avoid pain, I can deny pain, I can numb it and I can fight it, or I can decide to engage pain when it comes to me, giving it my full attention so that it can teach me what I need to know about the really real. If you've ever made a graph of your life, writing your birthday at the left side of the page and today's date at the right, filling in the major events that have made you who you are, then you're likely to note that the spikes in your pain bear some relationship to the leaps in your growth. It was when your family moved for the 4th time in 5 years that you learned to enjoy your own company in the months before you made new friends at school. It was when your partner left you that you remembered what else you meant to do in your life before staying together. It was when the doctor called about the spot on your lung that you finally made up with your sister. These are not the ways you would have chosen to become more than you were, but they worked. Pain burned up the cushions you used to keep from hitting bottom. Pain popped your clutch and shot you into the next gear. Pain landed you flat in bed, giving you time to notice things you never slowed down enough to notice before. Pain makes theologians of us all. If you spent even one night in real physical pain, then you know what that can do to your faith in God, not to mention your faith in your own ability to manage your life. So this is a point that I'm sure hits home with most of us. We've probably all had that moment of pain, whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, where we are left seeking answers. We are left trying to change our life or do something different as a result of that pain. And we don't always respond in the best ways. Sometimes we respond in what a therapist would call with unhealthy coping mechanisms. But there's lots of great healthy ones, and she brings up a great point that this should be part of our spiritual practice. This shouldn't be something that we relinquish to dealing with in the moment. Pain is something that we're going to go through no matter what. It's technically part of the curse bestowed upon us for eating the apple from the tree. If it's an apple, I mean, yeah, whatever. But we have this kind of blessing curse of pain bestowed upon us. And pain there's nothing better than pain at forcing us to stop and think about what's going on in our life. Like, I love the analogy of finding that spot on your lung, and that forces you to reconcile with your sister. Like, there's nothing truer than that. Pain forces us to stop and think about what's going on in our life, and if we've made right with the people around us, if we've made right with God, and kind of forces us to examine what life looks like. I think that's all I've got for you guys today. Just a thing to think about, and as you go through the troubles of this life, remember He's there walking beside you, and He'll never leave. They say that there's kind of that age-old saying that God won't give you anything you can't handle, and I've kind of learned that an adapted version of that statement is more appropriate. God won't give you anything you can't handle without Him by your side. We need Him by our side in order to do things. And so let's remember to call out to Him when we're having those moments, because He'll take care of us. Well, I think that's it. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.